cave passage in the world. It's in Vietnam, and they call it Hang Son Doong.
Of the limestone. This is the oldest rocks in Southeast Asia, 450 million year old, and it's really pure, good quality limestone.
For years, explorers have known Vietnam is home to some of Earth's most mysterious caves. But one enormous hidden cave remained largely out of reach. Now, scientists have finally entered this underground world and uncovered strange formations, hidden chambers, and clues about Vietnam's ancient landscape. Their findings could change what we know about Earth's hidden environments. So, what exactly was hiding inside this enormous cave, and why has its discovery left scientists stunned? Vietnam Hidden Cave. Vietnam's Phong Nha-Ke Bang National Park is one of the most amazing places on Earth. The park is filled with thick forests, huge mountains, and hundreds of caves hidden deep underground. Among these caves is Hang Son Doong, widely regarded as the largest cave in the world. The cave is so enormous that in some parts a 40-story building could easily fit inside. But its incredible size is not the only thing that makes it special. Son Doong has its own small ecosystem, with plants, animals, rivers, and other forms of life. The temperature and high humidity are also so unusual that clouds can actually form inside the cave. For years, scientists believed that most of the important secrets in this region had already been discovered. But in 2023, a new mapping project completely changed that idea. A team of geologists began studying the underground area using modern scanning technology. During the survey, satellite information and underground scans showed something extremely unusual. Deep beneath the ground, the equipment appeared to have detected a huge empty space. The discovery surprised the entire team. At first, the scientists thought the strange reading might simply be a mistake. They scanned the area again using a LiDAR scanner, but the system still struggled to properly read the mysterious section. Because nobody expected such a massive underground space, the computer software initially treated the unusual reading as an error. When researchers compared multiple data sets, they realized the anomaly was not a technical error. A massive unknown space truly existed underground. Even more surprising was its unusual shape. Unlike typical caves, formed over millions of years by erosion and filled with rough, twisting tunnels, this newly discovered structure looked remarkably different. Some sections appeared almost perfectly round. Other tunnels seemed to have nearly the same width for long distances. Even the sound waves produced during the scans behaved differently. Instead of producing the kind of echoes normally expected inside a natural cave, the sound appeared to bounce back from something with a very different structure. These strange signs made the scientists even more interested. There was now only one way to know what was really there. They had to reach the location and investigate it themselves. Preparations soon began for a special expedition. The team included geologists, geophysicists, cave experts, and other specialists who could help study anything they might find underground. None of them knew that the expedition could lead to discoveries far beyond what they had expected. As the scientists got closer to the mysterious area, they quickly discovered that entering it would be extremely difficult. The first investigation suggested that the cave entrance had been completely blocked by a huge rock collapse thousands of years ago. Since then, the underground space appeared to have remained sealed. If that was true, it meant that humans might never have entered the area before. There was no written record explaining what was inside. There were no confirmed reports from explorers. The scientists had almost nothing to work with. But the stories told by people living in nearby villages made the mystery even more interesting. Local residents had long believed that the area was cursed. They claimed that wild animals rarely went near it. Some even said that birds flying over the area would suddenly change direction, as if something had frightened them. At first, the scientists considered these stories to be nothing more than local legends passed down through generations. But instead of simply ignoring them, they decided to investigate the claims. A drone survey was launched over the area, and the results immediately caught the team's attention. Thermal cameras detected signs of heat coming from inside the sealed cave. This was extremely strange. The cave was completely closed off, meaning sunlight could not reach the hidden area. The researchers also found no signs of underground magma and no known geothermal source that could explain the heat. Something inside the sealed cave appeared to be producing or releasing heat. And now the scientists had an even bigger mystery to solve. What could possibly be creating that heat in a place that had been hidden underground for thousands of years? And where's it coming from? Let's take a closer look. The strange secrets. When the team finally reached the first chamber, the temperature suddenly dropped by almost 15 degrees in just a few seconds. At the same time, thin streams of warm steam were rising from cracks in the ground. It almost seemed as though the entire cave was slowly breathing. Even the sound inside the cave was strange. Normally, sound echoes back from the walls, but here, the echoes seemed to disappear deeper into the darkness. Some experts began to wonder if two separate cave systems were connected, creating what is sometimes called a double-layer cave system. However, after the team repeated all the measurements, the results did not support that idea. In fact, some sections of the cave were so smooth, even, and perfectly balanced that they looked less like something created naturally and more like a carefully designed structure. Every 26 minutes, a small vibration appeared. The vibration happened in exactly the same pattern every time. It did not look like a normal earthquake, and it did not match any known type of natural movement underground. The pattern continued again and again at the exact same interval, but nobody could figure out what was causing it. Far above their heads were several huge openings in the ceiling. Sunlight was pouring through these openings and reaching deep into the underground chamber. They acted almost like giant natural skylights. The cave was not filled with rocks and empty spaces alone. It contained an entire underground rainforest. Thick plants and green vegetation covered large parts of the cave. The air was warm and full of moisture. Tiny clouds were forming in some areas, while small drops of water fell from the air like light rain. Thin fog moved slowly through many parts of the cave. Huge ferns grew between rocks covered in moss. In some areas, the scientists discovered unusual fungi that produced a weak blue glow. Vietnamese botanist Dr. Le Thi Minh and her team began collecting plant samples from different parts of the cave. When the first tests were completed, the results were shocking. Nearly 40% of the plants did not match anything in existing genetic records. That meant the cave could contain plant species that science had never officially recorded before. One of the most unusual discoveries was a strange vine. When someone touched it, the plant suddenly snapped shut around the area like a net. Its movement was so unusual that scientists could not easily compare it with the behavior of normal plants. Deep inside the cave, the team could hear low rumbling sounds. There was no storm outside, yet the sound continued somewhere in the darkness. Some scientists believed the noise might be coming from underground rivers. To investigate, they sent drones deeper into the cave. Certain layers of fog inside the cave were moving in a very regular and fixed pattern. The scientists later gave these strange areas the name ghost fronts. Their radar systems began to malfunction, and even the temperature sensors started producing incorrect readings. It was almost as if something inside the fog was interfering with the equipment. As the scientists continued deeper into the cave, they began to understand that the animals living there were just as unusual as the environment around them. The first creature that caught their attention was a cave spider with what appeared to be a hard, metal-like shell covering its body. Not far away, they discovered strange lizards that had no eyes at all. Despite being completely blind, they moved smoothly through the wet soil. Their movements were almost like fish swimming through water, suggesting that their bodies had become highly adapted to life in complete darkness. A little farther ahead, the team found tiny crustaceans covered by hexagonal shells. Their shells scattered light in different directions, almost like tiny crystals. Some of these creatures did not glow all the time. Instead, their bodies began to light up whenever something moved close to them. If a person, animal, or object came near, waves of light would spread across their bodies. Scientists describe this as motion-based bioluminescence because the light appeared to be triggered by movement rather than simply by darkness. Then, right in the middle of this strange underground world, the team discovered a calm, incredibly clear lake. The lake itself was unusual because its shape looked almost perfectly oval. Around its edges were dark black rocks that looked similar to obsidian. When the scientists gently tapped the rocks, they produced a clear sound that reminded them of a small bell. The water was strange too. It was slightly warm, extremely clear, and seemed to be denser than normal water. When the scientists tested samples, they discovered hydrothermal minerals. However, these minerals are normally associated with deep-sea hydrothermal vents, where hot, mineral-rich water rises from beneath the ocean floor. How did this ecosystem manage to survive for thousands of years without help from the outside world? And how did its plants, animals, and water stay in such a delicate balance for so long? Let's explore further. The hidden underground structure. After crossing the lake, the scientists entered a chamber that looked and felt completely different from everything they had seen before. The first thing they noticed was the rock. Until this point, most of the cave had been made of limestone, but here, the rocks were much darker and had a strange, almost metallic surface. At first, the geologists thought they were looking at basalt, a dark volcanic rock, but when they tested samples, they found something very unusual. The rock was almost 97% uniform in its composition. Natural rocks are rarely this consistent. The walls of the chamber were just as strange. Instead of having the rough, uneven surface normally found inside caves, they curved inward. It looked as if extreme heat or pressure had shaped them. But the scientists could find no evidence of volcanic activity. There was no melted rock, no volcanic ash, and nothing else that could explain how the walls had formed. Then they noticed something even stranger on the ground. Tiny stones, roughly the size of coins, appeared to be floating a few centimeters above the floor. They were completely still. When the scientists tried to touch them, the stones seemed to move away slightly, almost as if an invisible magnetic force was pushing them back. But tests created another mystery. The stones did not contain enough iron to produce such an effect. One physicist admitted that explaining what they were seeing would not be easy. As the team moved deeper into the chamber, they discovered another unusual feature. Some of the cave's stalactites were growing sideways instead of hanging down from the ceiling. Others had twisted into shapes that looked almost like corkscrews. This was very different from the normal shapes created when water slowly drips through limestone. Thin layers of crystal-like material also covered parts of the walls. When someone spoke near them, the scientists could feel a tiny vibration coming from inside the crystals. An engineer decided to test them. He gently tapped one of the crystal-covered areas with a metal rod. The sound that came back was strange. Instead of producing an ordinary echo, it seemed to travel deep beneath the ground. At about the same time, the team's sensors picked up another mysterious pattern. Every 42 minutes, the rocks produced the same pulse. It sounded almost like a slow heartbeat. The scientists could not identify it as normal earthquake activity, and it did not appear to come from any machine. Then the team discovered something that made the chamber even more mysterious. Part of one wall looked completely different from everything around it. The surface was incredibly smooth, almost like ceramic. The area was also warm, and the scientists believed there was an empty space behind it. They tried drilling into the wall, but even a diamond-tipped drill could not continue for very long before becoming damaged or stopping. For the first time, some members of the team began to consider a shocking possibility. What if at least part of this chamber was not completely natural? What if scientists discovered a stone of thousands of years covered in symbols? Let's take a closer look. 12,000-year-old mystery. As the scientists prepared to leave the chamber, something unexpected happened. One of the geologists felt his foot hit something hard beneath the soil. The team carefully removed the dirt and discovered a round stone slab. At first, it looked like an ordinary piece of rock, but after they cleaned it, strange carved markings appeared across its surface. These were clearly not random scratches made by nature. Someone appeared to have deliberately carved them. The scientists first wondered if the markings had been created by an ancient civilization from the region. But when they examined them more closely, they found that they did not match Vietnamese writing or Sanskrit. The team then used software that could compare symbols from different ancient writing systems. Some of the markings appeared to have similarities to what is known as the Proto-Elamite script. Proto-Elamite is linked to one of the earliest known writing traditions, although much of it is still not fully understood. The first estimate suggested that the stone slab could be around 12,000 years old. If that age is confirmed, the discovery would be extremely important. It would make the markings older than the earliest known civilizations of Mesopotamia. But the biggest surprise was still waiting underneath the slab. When the scientists lifted it, they found a completely empty space below. What made the space unusual was the silence. There was almost no echo at all. The team tried recording sounds inside the cavity, but their equipment picked up almost nothing. Their instruments also detected no unusual electromagnetic interference. The space seemed to behave very differently from an ordinary underground cave. The scientists decided to investigate further. Using ground-penetrating radar, they scanned the area beneath the slab. The results were astonishing. The scan appeared to show several hexagon-shaped chambers connected to one another. Together, they formed a pattern that looked almost like a giant underground honeycomb. And then, the sensors detected another signal. Every 4 minutes and 37 seconds, the same low-frequency pulse appeared again. The pattern repeated over and over. The scientists could not match it to any known natural process. One member of the team described the strange timing as if lifting the stone slab had somehow activated a hidden system. That night, the mystery became even deeper. The team's radio began picking up unusual static interference. Later, when scientists studied the shape of the radio waves, they reported that some parts appeared similar to patterns found in ancient cave artwork from the Sahara. Then, in March 2025, reports began circulating about a leaked internal memo. According to the reports, another chamber at the site was still sealed. Even more strangely, continuous echo-like activity was reportedly being detected from inside it. The scientists were already struggling to understand the strange signals coming from the cave in Vietnam. But then another report emerged, one that surprised the entire team. What if a mysterious signal from a cave in Vietnam was also detected thousands of miles away in the Arctic? What was the transparent creature caught crawling across the walls of the mysterious cave? Let's find out. Hidden creature with a hexagonal eye. In early 2025, a research team in Norway was studying heat data collected by satellites over the Arctic. During their work, they detected the same low-frequency signal that had previously been found inside the mysterious cave in Vietnam. What surprised the researchers even more was that the signal appeared to repeat every 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When scientists compared the recordings from the two locations, they discovered something even stranger. The signals were not only very similar, they were being recorded at almost exactly the same time, with the difference measured in just milliseconds. The researchers checked everything they could think of, including different time zones, the Earth's rotation, and possible delays in the recording equipment. But even after making those adjustments, the signals still appeared to match. Some researchers then decided to compare the signal with old recordings from the Soviet Kola Super Deep Borehole project. This was the famous drilling project that later became connected to the popular Well to Hell story. Years ago, strange sounds were supposedly recorded during the project, although those stories were later dismissed as a myth. However, when some of the old recordings were examined again using modern computer software, researchers claimed that certain parts of the audio appeared similar to the signal detected in the Vietnam cave. Some scientists also compared the cave signals with several radio bursts that had previously been recorded by SETI, an organization involved in the search for possible signals from intelligent life beyond Earth. At the same time, a few physicists proposed another interesting idea. They suggested that the strange underground chambers, especially their unusual hexagonal shapes, might have something to do with a possible neutrino resonance pattern. Then, the researchers made another discovery that was even more unusual: a mysterious creature caught on camera. While the investigation into the strange signals was still continuing, scientists noticed something unusual on the wet upper walls of the Vietnam cave. Hundreds of small, round nests were attached to the walls. At first, they looked like ordinary bird nests, but when the researchers examined them more closely, they realized something was very wrong. The nests were not made from twigs, grass, mud, or any of the materials normally used by animals in the area. Instead, they were made from a strange wax-like material that appeared to contain proteins. Even more strangely, the material did not seem to match anything produced by any known creature living nearby. The team collected samples and sent them for DNA testing. The first results created another mystery. Part of the genetic material appeared to have similarities with ancient arthropods, a group that includes insects, spiders, and related animals. But other parts of the DNA could not be matched with any known species. At first, every nest appeared to be empty, so the researchers decided to place motion-activated cameras around the area. They wanted to find out whether something was secretly returning to the nests. What the cameras captured after midnight shocked the entire team. The footage showed a strange, transparent creature about the size of a human hand. It had several faintly glowing plates along its back and moved quietly across the vertical cave wall. Its movements were extremely smooth and controlled. Instead of moving randomly, it appeared to follow a specific path along the wall. The creature suddenly stopped directly in front of one of the cameras. Slowly, it turned its head. For a moment, it appeared to be looking directly into the camera. Only one eye could be seen on its face, but the shape of the pupil immediately caught the scientists' attention. It appeared to have a hexagonal shape. That was particularly strange because the researchers had already noticed that similar hexagonal patterns on the mysterious stone slab and in the design of the underground chambers. A few days later, the team returned to the same area. They discovered that the number of nests had almost doubled. Small traces of the same strange wax-like material had also appeared on the outside of some of the equipment used by the expedition. This raised a disturbing possibility. Perhaps these creatures had already moved beyond the main part of the cave. Even stranger, none of the sensors had detected them moving around the equipment. After the expedition finally ended, the scientists believed the next stage of the investigation would simply involve studying their samples and recordings inside the laboratory. But they were about to discover that the mystery was far from over. Why did several scientists begin experiencing strange changes after leaving the cave? Could something inside the mysterious chamber have affected their brains and memories? Let's find out. Strange effects of the mysterious cave. But only a few weeks later, the story took another strange turn. This time, the questions were no longer about what was inside the cave. They were about the people who had returned from it. At first, several team members said they had heard voices, even though no one else was nearby. Others said that, for a few seconds, they felt as if time was moving either much faster or much slower than normal. One team member even claimed that his watch suddenly showed a time almost 20 minutes ahead, while every other digital device and recording showed the correct time. At first, doctors believed these strange experiences could be caused by exhaustion, lack of sleep, or mental stress. But when more team members began reporting similar problems, doctors decided to examine everyone who had taken part in the expedition. Brain scans of some team members showed unusual electrical activity in two areas of the brain, the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex. These areas are closely connected to memory, thinking, and decision-making. The medical report also mentioned small electrical pulses. They were not strong enough to seriously hurt anyone, but doctors believed they might have affected the body's biological clock and short-term memory in some people. There was one detail that stood out. The people who had spent the most time near the hexagonal chamber showed these changes more clearly than everyone else. Then another strange incident came to light. One of the researchers began drawing spirals, hexagons, and other strange shapes on pieces of paper while he was asleep. Later, scientists compared these drawings with the patterns found in the crystal sheets inside the cave. According to the report, some of the shapes looked surprisingly similar. Even stranger, the researcher had no memory of drawing anything when he woke up. Around the same time, a female biologist began talking in her sleep. Some language experts who listened to the recordings claimed that her words sounded similar to very old human languages. Meanwhile, the youngest technician on the team kept having the same dream again and again. He said that in the dream, he was standing inside a completely dark chamber. Beneath his feet, a strange pulse of light was rising from the ground. What made the dream even more disturbing was that the light seemed to flash at exactly the same rhythm as his heartbeat. Later, a leaked report claimed that doctors had recommended long-term monitoring of the people who took part in the expedition. The final page of the report was missing, but one short sentence that had supposedly been written on that page became widely discussed. Cave changes you. Are the strange signals and markings connected to something we still cannot explain? Could there be underground worlds on Earth that humans have never seen? Let's explore further. Mysteries of Son Doong Cave. Son Doong is one of the biggest known caves on Earth. It is located in Vietnam's Phong Nha-Ke Bang region, an area famous for its mountains, forests, rivers, and huge underground cave systems. But Son Doong is special for another reason. Deep inside the cave, nature seems to create its own small world. Trees can grow inside, clouds can appear, and conditions can sometimes feel similar to the weather we experience outside. The cave itself is believed to have formed in limestone that is around 400 million years old. That means the rocks inside Son Doong are extremely ancient. Over the years, scientists and explorers have studied the cave and the surrounding area to learn more about its unusual environment. Several different species have also been found there, and researchers are still studying some of them. Every discovery inside the cave reminds scientists that there is still a lot about our planet that humans do not completely understand. Even though people have explored many parts of Earth, huge areas beneath the surface remain difficult to reach. Some underground environments may have developed in isolation for extremely long periods, allowing plants, animals, and other forms of life to adapt in unusual ways. However, it is important to separate real scientific discoveries from stories and claims that have not been properly proven. Over time, Son Doong has become connected to several unusual ideas.
Truth is, McNabb's first expedition in 2009 never reached the end of Son Doong.
Some people have suggested that certain parts of the cave could contain structures made by humans. Others have wondered whether strange signals reportedly detected in or around the cave could be connected to some kind of hidden system. There have also been claims involving something called the Proto-Elamite script. Some people have suggested that markings or symbols could be connected to this ancient writing system. Other stories have tried to connect signals reportedly found in the cave with similar signals said to have been detected in the Arctic. Some theories even suggest that these discoveries could have a connection to an ancient civilization that existed long ago. These ideas are certainly interesting, but they should not be treated as established facts. At this point, there is no strong scientific agreement proving these claims. They remain theories, questions, or subjects that would need much more research before scientists could accept them as real discoveries. This difference between evidence and interpretation is very important. A strange object, unusual sound, unknown signal, or unexplained marking can easily make a discovery seem mysterious. But something being unexplained does not automatically mean that the most unusual explanation is correct. Science works by testing ideas and looking for reliable evidence. Researchers can ask almost any question, no matter how strange it may sound. But before an idea becomes accepted as a fact, there must be enough evidence to support it. Until then, it is safer to describe the idea as a possibility rather than a proven truth. That is also what makes Son Doong so fascinating. The cave is already remarkable because of its enormous size, ancient rocks, underground forests, and unusual natural conditions. Future research could help scientists understand some of the mysteries surrounding it. At the same time, new research could uncover things that nobody expected to find. For now, the best approach is to remain curious while staying careful about what we believe. So, what do you think about the shocking discovery of a massive hidden cave in Vietnam by scientists? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.